Writing emails for a launch got you down and feeling frustrated, not sure what to say. Today's consumers are extremely savvy shoppers, and these days being more intentional about where they spend their hard-earned dollars. But what if you could talk about what you're launching in a way that's different from everybody else? I'm talking had people on the edge of their seats while they are waiting for you to finally announce what you have. Well, today we are talking about anticipation marketing, how you can use it to tease your audience about what's coming up and talk about it without actually talking about it. So let's get on to the show. Brenna, I'm so glad to have you here on the show. So I love to have a warm-up question so that my audience gets to know you also. And what is something that you are so damn proud of in your life? Ah,
Gotta be my kids. I have 3 great kids. I have a 21-year-old who is an EMT who just went through the fire academy and he wants to become a firefighter. I have my daughter who's 18, a senior in high school, and she is committed to college on a soccer scholarship. And as much as I'm devastated she's moving away from me, it's only like 90 minutes. We were in the car the other day with her friend, and her friend was saying how she's moving to Hawaii. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank God, like my daughter is not going to Hawaii for college. So that put that into perspective. And then my youngest daughter is a junior in high school and has a job, and next year plans to do ROP at her high school for cosmetology. She wants to be a hairdresser. And not only just of their accomplishments, they all have good hearts and they're good kids. And my husband and I are really, really lucky to have 3 wonderful kids.
And I knew that you were going to say your kids. And if you didn't, kids, I would have been surprised because I know how proud you are of your 3 kids and your son, thank him for serving, please. I mean, I think any sort of like EMT, firefighter, military it's just a huge act of service.
I will.
And I love the fact that your youngest, she just knows, you don't have to go to college in order to have a wonderful career. I just feel like when I was in high school, it was like so much peer pressure. Like you had to go to college. Otherwise, what would I do?
Yeah, I think there's still a little bit of it, but I think luckily she knows herself well enough. She had a moment where she actually this year as a junior was like, maybe I do want to go to college, but it wasn't because she wants like a career, because she wanted to like go to like fraternity parties or something like that. And so I was like, well, that's great. Like, well, you can, we have to do this, this, and this. And then it was like, oh, wait, maybe that doesn't sound like so much fun. Like, I'm going to go back to the cosmetology. So yeah, I think it's great. And neither my husband or I coincidentally graduated from college. And coming into this position and starting my own business, it was something I was embarrassed about, right? I have my AA, but I never finished. And I thought about finishing when my daughter went back to preschool. And it was something that always kind of bothered me, which is ironic now because now I'm like, gosh, I think about my business. Like no one once has ever asked me, do you have a 4-year degree? It's never been a thought. And so I think it's really important that we, with our kids, yeah, you can. Like I said, I have one that's going to college, one that needs to go away. And I don't think my son, too, a typical 4-year college, it would never have worked for him. And so I think it's showing our kids the different opportunities that are out there.
Yes. So let's just jump right into your business and what possessed you to start a business.
Right. That's a question I ask myself sometimes. But I come from like an entrepreneur background in terms of my husband was a contractor since we were married. We had our own business. And the funny part was now he's a firefighter. And I begged him to go get a real job at different points because I wanted health insurance. And so I think it's ironic that I have my own business now. But my parents, all different types. But the long story short of it was that I was working for a website development company, very part-time, and they pulled back my hours. And I liked the flexibility of working from home. And at the time I was volunteering in my kids' school. And I kind of on the side had been doing a little bit of social media marketing, not even realizing that's the term of what it was, but I was doing a little bit of email marketing. And I just had a little bunch of side hustles. And I was like, wait, I could like maybe make this into a business where I do this for other people to try and replace that income that I had lost. And I always joke, like I was just trying to make $500 a month so I could like pay the electric bill and get Botox guilt free. And so I started the business and I realized pretty quickly I didn't know what I was doing. Like I was helping people with social media, but I always call the online world this underground world where it's like this parallel world where if you don't know what's going on under it, you just don't know. So I started to call myself a social media manager. I got clients right away. I was working like for pennies on the dollar, but I just kind of out of nowhere decided to start this thing. And I did it out of a lot of ignorance, which I think has benefited me in the end.
Huge benefits. Yeah, it's funny how you talked about like the online world was the underground world, because when I came from the world of stepping on stages to the online world, it was like, where's the rule book? Can somebody show me like how to maneuver around this place and what I'm supposed to do? So like, good for you for just jumping in without even worrying or being concerned about like, I don't know how to do this, but I'll like figure it out as I move along.
Yeah, I think I knew enough that I thought I knew what I was doing, but you don't know what you don't know. And so I think that part of it, and of anything, like I said, I was more intimidated by like, I had just turned 40. So I was like, who is going to want to hire like a 40-year-old stay-at-home mom who doesn't have a college degree, who has no social presence? Like I was doing social media, but literally I had like a fake social media account on Facebook because you have to post for other people. You have to have your own Facebook. And like, I wasn't even on Facebook or anything. Like, it's very interesting to me. Like these things that we think are the things that are going to hold us back are not truly what holds us back from doing the thing.
Right, right. So you obviously were a gifted writer. Is that like a yes? Yeah, like writing always came easy to me. And
I thank you for that. Like I never thought of myself as a gifted writer, but I always loved to write. Like in my journals, like, in high school, I more too had like what I consider these like quirky little stories and parallels always kind of going in my mind. I've always been an avid reader ever since I was little and a fiction reader, so like Babysitter's Club, Sweet Valley High. So that's kind of like how like my brain worked a little bit, but I didn't realize that I was good at writing, if you will, until I started the social media management. And I hated that part of my job. I quickly transitioned away from social media management into copywriting. But by doing that, people would say, and I was doing my own marketing for myself, people would be like, oh my gosh, I just love the way you write. Like, I love the captions that you're doing, or I don't even think I had an email list at that point. And that is like by doing something else, I recognized, oh yeah, like I do like this and I think it's fun. So maybe I should do this now as my business. And that's when I transitioned over into copywriting.
Wonderful. And so was there a specific type of copywriting? Because I realized there's so many, like you can specialize within copywriting.
Yes, I specialized in email copywriting at the time. I moved on to do all types of copy, like websites and landing pages and sales pages, all the things. But my first love is email, and it still is. If I could just write emails and that's all I had to do for like my own marketing. And I am slowly changing my business to be that's my primary channel. But yeah, email to me was the closest to like those social media captions. And so that's really where it was the first course I took. It was the first copywriting clients I got was email.
Fantastic. Now, I know that there is an interesting story about how you took a pivot, which is what this whole episode is really going to be about. Talk about, like setting you up with anticipation, listeners. Not fun story. And I actually saw Brenna and Laura Belgray actually like basically doing a workshop. Brenna was doing a lot of interviewing and really just pulling out a lot of what she loves about Laura Belgray's writing, her emails, and why she thought that, like, here's why I think you wrote it this way. And so I got to see this in action, which was so beautiful. But she mentioned that she had a story with Laura, which is why she does a different type of copywriting. Take it away. Tell me.
Well, actually, I was doing email copywriting at the time. So what ended up happening is I transitioned at the beginning of 2019 to become an email copywriter. Around that time, hopefully my timeline is right. Laura, forgive me if I'm wrong. Laura Belgray had this new course, if you will, was called Inbox Hero. And when you bought Inbox Hero and you were one of the first 50 people to buy it, you got a review of an email. You had a chance to have Laura Belgray look at one of your emails in a Zoom setting. And I was determined that being an email copywriter, like Laura is the best. And I had taken a course with my friend and mentor, who's another brilliant copywriter, Chris Orzakowski, and he happened to be on this call. So what ended up happening is as soon as Laura opened the doors for this course, I bought it immediately. So I would have a chance to be one of the 50 people. And then I submitted an email for her to possibly review. And so I remember sitting on that Zoom call that day and I was like, Laura's going to have so many people. Like she can't do that. If all 50 people submitted, like the chances of mine getting reviewed are like little. And so I remember being on the Zoom call and my friend Brittany sends me a message. She's like, oh my gosh, I see your name at the top. Like Laura had all of her emails queued up that she was going to go over on the Zoom call. And I realized, oh my gosh, Laura is going to review my email. And I'm freaking out inside because it's Laura Belgray, right? Like she's the queen in email. And not only that, but the email that I submitted, which I laugh at now, was please don't pee on me was the subject line. And I didn't go back and like pull the email because I'm trying to remember, but I know I was talking about the time from that Friends episode where is it Joey or Chandler pees on Monica after she gets stung by a jellyfish? And on my honeymoon, I had gotten stung by a jellyfish and I was wishing someone would pee on my leg because it hurt so bad, like so bad. I have not been snorkeling since then. And that was 26 years ago. So I am like terrified now to get stung by a jellyfish.
I would be terrified of that happening again.
It was horrible. So Laura read this email and as she's reading through it, she likes it, right? Like she has a couple of things like, oh, I might tweak this or do this, but she really, really likes this email. And after it was done, like to go from like pure panic and embarrassment, because not only am I going to be on camera with Laura Belgray, Chris Orzakowski happens to be on this call. My friend Brittany happens to be on this call. And I'm like, I am going to be so embarrassed. Like, right. If she hates it, and quite the opposite happened. She loved the email. We actually had a conversation on Instagram about it after, and it really changed. Like, I was confident in my email skills. I've been working on them, but to have Laura come in and say, like, this email was really great, it really just like assured me like I was on the right path. And I credit her to changing the trajectory of my career because I think there was a confidence that came. Like once Laura Belgray gave you like the stamp of approval, I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. I know what I am doing. And I've gone on to work with Laura Belgray in Shrimp Club and she's now a friend. And it's just been such like a beautiful progression of relationship. But I mentioned to you before we started, and I think it's something like we just don't know who's out there, who's looking up to us, who like just a simple acknowledgement and positive feedback, how much it can change the perception. It changed the perception of how I felt about myself a bit. And it really changed, I think, helped me go like, okay, I can do this. I know what I'm doing. And that confidence in myself has been priceless.
That's so wonderful. And that's so true. How we just some random words, a random compliment can really impact somebody for the rest of their lives. Yeah. I have a funny story that I walked into a restaurant. Now, I used to teach fitness classes when I was in college as part of the rec department. And I walked into this restaurant and this woman recognizes me. She's the owner and she's also hostessing that night. She's like, Laurie-Ann. And I'm like, hi. Being a speaker, I was kind of used to it, but I was just like, but then it's like that awkward question, like, how do we know each other? Right. And she tells me, she said, I took your aerobic classes in college at UNH. And I was like, oh, okay. She goes, I remember you saying, she said, if you don't want to look like ice cream, don't eat ice cream. Or I would feel like that is such a thing that I would say during class because I would be like trying to like share. She was like, that impacted me so much. She goes, I was just always aware of like what I was eating, whether it was ice cream or something else. But again, it had happened years ago. So we're going to talk about anticipation and
Yes.
how you help, like your students, your clients build that anticipation, which I think is so important without, it almost sounds to me like we're all going to be learning together from Brenna. Like you're talking about what you do without actually talking about it. I feel like it's like teasing people, which I love.
Yeah. No, I think anticipation. So now one of my big focuses, which I utilize email and other marketing channels, is how to build anticipation into our offers. So people anticipate them, right? Like in in a meta way. But if we look to the outside world, the non-parallel world, the real world, well, if you look at it, people use, or I should say businesses use anticipation all the time. So Apple is a great example, right? They don't tell you that iPhone is coming out the day it comes out. They're building up what you're going to get, how you're going to feel once you have the new iPhone. Even simple things like holidays, right? When you think about Christmas time and the holidays, like you go into Costco in September and there's trees up. And it's not because they think you're going to buy a tree then. It's because they know they're anticipating that future season. My favorite example of this, and I'm not even a Swiftie, is Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. Like, what a beautiful example of anticipation where she got people so excited about the tour that she was about to release that it sold out, that people were waiting 8 hours online to buy a ticket before. And that was for a pre-sale. That wasn't even for the sale of her tickets. But she knew that if she could build this anticipation into her offer, that people would be excited and be talking about it. It would build buzz. It would build momentum. And that's really what when I came onto the scene and online world in 2018, there was a lot of like scarcity. And if I remember this one particular person talking about their offers and like if you don't want to invest in yourself, like how can anyone invest in you, right? Like all this language, and the online market has shifted thankfully away from that. But now I feel like there's this recalibration that's happened and people are still like, okay, how do I balance things that do work like urgency and scarcity with actually selling in a way that feels good to me and feels good to my potential clients and helps bring in better people and better buyers. I talk a lot about autonomy too when it comes to selling. Like I want to provide an environment where people have a lot of autonomy in their buying decisions. And the way that we can do that is through anticipation, because in terms of anticipation, you have to back up, right? Like anticipation happens before the event. So you have to create a plan of what you're going to say and do before an event, an offer, whatever that is, to get the buzz and excitement going. And the cool part about it is when you can do this, it really creates this like current force of where you're bringing in people in a way that doesn't feel salesy, that takes away some of this pressure, that builds excitement. The last thing too about anticipation that I really love is that there's actual documentation where if we can get someone to anticipate something, it's like they feel like they already have it already. And that once they do receive that thing that they anticipated, they enjoy it more. So if we can start building this more into our offers, all of a sudden, not only are we giving customers more autonomy, they're making better buying decisions, but they are actually enjoying the thing that they bought even more, which helps you with your testimonial. So it's just beautiful thing, cyclical thing that starts to happen when you use anticipation.
Oh, that was a great explanation. So you just mentioned, you have to sort of back up from when I'm going to say like your opening cart. So how far back do you recommend to your clients and students to actually start building the anticipation?
Right. I teach a 4 to 6 week cycle. I think it depends, right? Most people aren't doing any of this. So I'd say any amount of pre-sale anticipation is going to be great. I also think too, if you're selling a $27 sweater, maybe you don't need 6 weeks of building up. So it just kind of depends. You have to look at it from a strategic end. But for most people that are selling courses, programs, high-end services, even memberships, even if it's a smaller dollar membership, because people have a hard time. There's something about memberships where people making a monthly commitment, it's often easier to get someone to buy a $2,000 course than it is to get them to commit to $27 a month. It's a weird psychological thing. So even that, so I like about a 4 to 6 week runway And I call this like consideration content. So this is where we step out of our regular marketing content and we get really, really intentional about what is coming up. But with, like you said, we start teasing and seeding at the same time.
So say more about that. You're teasing people and seeding them. Like, can you give us an example? Because most of us don't have, most of my listeners are online businesses. So we're not walking into Costco to see the actual Christmas tree or walking into an Apple store that says like coming, however, well, they seem to do a lot of stuff online also, but help us out
Yeah.
with that.
So there's a couple of things. So when I say teasing, I don't mean that in like a mean manipulative way. It's just like, no, this is what simply just mentioning what you have coming up without offering it already and making people aware is half the battle, right? And that goes back to the autonomy that I was talking about earlier. When we can give people some space in Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, I'm going to paraphrase something that he talks about here, but he talks about that when you give someone the opportunity to say no, they will often say yes. And so that is essentially what we're doing during, I call it a pre-launch period or this period of anticipation, is that we're giving people an opportunity to say no in order to hopefully help them make a better buying decision. So a mixture of what we do is we build anticipation, but we also are tapping into the struggle that someone during this period of 4 to 6 weeks, we're tapping into the struggle, like making it very well known to the person that we understand what they're going through. We're looking at what are the things that someone believes about their situation in context to what our offer is that may or may not be true. What is the thing that stops someone from taking action? What is the thing that they really want on the other side of our offer? So we're exploring these different angles, if you will, while also showing people what's possible, what can happen, what their life will look like, what is the pain that will be removed, right? We're doing all of this beforehand so that by the time, the goal with anticipation and anticipation marketing is that by the time that someone actually sees an offer, meaning your cart is open, you're asking them if they want to buy, they're already at the point where they're saying, yes, like, yes, this is a problem I need to solve, right? For the right person. And this is a pain I want to remove from my life. Now I'm just trying to figure out what is the best path or what's the best offer, if you will, what's the best solution out there for me to actually get rid of this pain or find this transformation that I'm looking for.
This is all so good. And as you're explaining this, I am seeing like you're talking about like in the online space in your like Instagram, so to speak, 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm like, because I help people with speaking and crafting speeches, like you could do this in 45 minutes. Because that's exactly what I teach people to do is like, storytelling and planting seeds so that at the end, when it's, share your offer, people are raising their hands and you've already pulled in the right people. And the other people who are just like, nope, this isn't for me now, they're also great referral agents who can talk about you or here's somebody who needs what you offer and refer people to you. But yes, so it can be done in 45 minutes if you're writing a speech.
Exactly. And someone pointed out today to me too, it's like what you said, that 45-minute speech where someone's captivated in front of you. Unfortunately, our audience isn't like, we don't have that opportunity like we do in a room where we're actually speaking, but it's essentially the same thing. Like, how can we draw out and tell story? And that's it. And it's content that we're putting out. It's like, how can we tell stories? How can we demonstrate? How can we do things that are fun, that get people to know us, that draw them in? And like you said, it's a similar, I never thought about it like that, but a very similar concept, just done in a different application.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Because with speaking, like I have a captivated audience. With the online space, people are just distracted. Yes. And hopefully everybody is listening to this episode from beginning to end and we have a captivated audience. This is so fun. And can you share a story about one of your students?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have so many wonderful students, but I'll tell the student. Well, Susan Riak is one of my favorites, and she was a friend beforehand and has become a long-term client of mine. And I'm almost positive she was the first person that ever bought the Prelaunch Plan program, which is my program that she went through. And at the time, she had had decent launches, right? Like they hadn't been horrible, but they were lackluster. I think the first time or the second time, I don't remember exactly, she had gotten 6 people in, which she felt really great about. But she knew, and she said that her pre-launch was haphazard. She knew it was something that she was missing out on. And so she took the pre-launch plan program with me and went ahead and implemented a full pre-launch. And what I love about Susan is like she didn't have a huge list. Her list was about 800 people. And she implemented everything that I teach in the pre-launch plan program, did this 4 to 6 weeks of anticipation building and seeding and that sort of thing. And when she opened her doors the next time, I have so many stories with her. I want to say she was 20 or 25% full before she even opened her doors. So she was able, and that's something else that I show people do is how to pre-sell. But then from there, she actually enrolled 18 people into her program, which was not a cheap course, right? It was a nice investment. And so she tripled her enrollment, 300% increase by doing a pre-launch. And she has gone on and rinsed and repeated the strategy. And that's the other beautiful part is that when you start doing a pre-launch, you're not starting from scratch, right? You are able to reuse emails and different assets. So she went ahead and did that again. And she's done it 2 or 3 times now. Her last launch in the fall was her largest launch ever. She hadn't even increased her email list by that much. And it just is such a cool thing to say, like, you are, whether you realize it or not, you are putting out, you're working before your launch. Because one of the things that stops people when they start hearing 4 to 6 weeks and talking about pre-launch, they're like, either they think, A, I'm selling for 6 weeks. No, you're not selling for 6 weeks. That's the first thing I want to say. Or B, this seems like a lot of work and you should be putting out content before your launch, right? Like, so you're probably putting out content anyway. And if you're not putting anything out there, then that's a whole different discussion. But really, it's more about being really intentional and really directing people to build that anticipation, to get people moving. So like I said, Susan has done the same process, I believe, 3 times, has had outstanding results each time. And because of that, she had larger launches. She was able to have more time to work on other projects. She just created a new course, just had a successful launch of that new course, did the same process. And now she's taking what we worked on together because she came back and worked with me. And now she's creating an evergreen funnel with the new product that she just created. But I've had, clients have their first 6-figure launch, increase sales 40 to 50%. And it's just really cool to watch what can happen by just being, like I said, putting out some really fun and interesting content beforehand, how it can really change your sales cycles.
That is so wonderful. And I'm sure that everybody who's listening to this, because I know I am, now I want to know more information about your program. Great segue, because I know that you have something for our listeners. Tell us what that is, Brenna.
Right. I have the pre-launch cheat sheet. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, where do I even start? And this pre-launch cheat sheet is going to show you some of the types of content that you should be putting out before your launch. So in order for someone to buy from you, they have to have 3 core beliefs. They have to believe that you are the right person to help them. They have to believe that your offer or the mechanism behind your offer is the thing that will help them get results. And lastly, they have to believe in themselves enough that they can actually get that, right? And that's a big challenge for many of us, is that we hold ourselves back sometimes from what we want for whatever reason, because we're human. So I show you, these 3 beliefs, and I show you the type of content that you should be creating to help shift these beliefs before you launch.
So wonderful. So everybody go and download that. Where can they find it again?
BrennaMcGowan.co/cheat sheet.
Cheat sheet. And that link will be down below. But I know that everybody let's get started on this anticipation marketing now, so that when Brenna does open the doors to her program next, we can all actually learn how to really fine tune this anticipation marketing so that we can have these launches like some of her other students. And Brenna, where else can people find you so that they can follow you? And definitely, I want to suggest everybody read her emails so that you can see how good of a writer she is and learn from her.
Yeah. And that's what I always say too. If you download that cheat sheet, you'll be added to my email list and you can spy on me and watch me in action when it comes to my pre-launch and see what I'm up to. And the other places you can find me, you can go to my website, BrennaMcGowan.co. I'm also at Instagram, Brenna McGowan Co. Come say hi to me in the DMs. And then I also have the Behind the Launch Facebook group. If you search Behind the Launch with Brenna McGowan, you'll find it. And there we do the same. We talk all things, anticipation, marketing, copy, to help you. My goal really is to help you, grow your revenue. I just came off of the last launch of the pre-launch plan program, and I can honestly say it was the easiest, most relaxed launch I've had. And that's what I want to help people create in their own businesses.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on today. So everybody, all of those links will be down below. And until next time, be in demand.